it was a disaster. We lost all our money and, we're there for 4 or 5 months, ran out of everything. But the company did well. So we pivoted, moved to Palo Alto. We got into Boost VC, which is still doing great. And we were bought. We made money. We had a profitable exit, doing everything wrong and being completely clueless and incorrect about the market.
I think we go through periods where we think I'm supposed to be at X place by now, and I'm not. And that sort of discontent can just last forever.
The side quest can take 5 years, and then they finally having a linear path to entrepreneurship is a privilege. It's like some stars align you should be grateful for. For a lot of us, it's not. Hey. Long time no see. I can't hear you.
Let's see. Check.
Now I got you. Okay, there we go. Sweet.
Well, hello.
Hello.
we got dueling mics. We're just this is how we're. That's right. That's very interesting. It's a very interesting point. We get the podcast voice going.
That's right.
Amazing. Well, thanks for taking time and coming in.
Yeah, thanks, man. No, this is exciting. I don't do a ton of these, so I don't have much of a podcast voice. I get to practice it. This is great.
No, you've got the setup, you got the view. Look at that. That's quite the view. And I think I can see where we had our Blue Startups party. I think it's right.
Yeah. Right across the way. It's right a block away.
Amazing. It's interesting before we get into into your venture. I'd love to start out the idea, from a zero to perspective. I say we, it happens sometimes. I really just started, when I started Sacklist, I started thinking about the journey because from an entrepreneurial perspective, you decide, you get this bug in your brain. You're like, you know what, I'm going to go do a thing. And from that moment, it's so interesting, how there's no playbook. There's no you've got so many opinions and so many ways that you could go. And so I'm interested, about hearing some of those really sort of early moments in Darwinian, but also prior to that, starting with, I guess, just your history and growing up, were you in an entrepreneurial family? Did you always have sort of an itch to start something, or did you go traditional and then sort of veer, or, where does the kind of the entrepreneurial side of things start in your history?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's definitely very core to who I am. I remember being super young and even just in really subtle ways, my friends' dads who I looked up to the most happened to be business owners, even if they were small business owners. They owned a furniture store, whatever. I just thought they were the coolest people ever, and I looked up to them. My dad was decently entrepreneurial. He didn't, but I guess the big thing, and that kind of shaped my approach, is that he didn't have a lot of ownership, but he came and started a brand from nothing and built a whole business as the sort of creative person, but the ownership was elsewhere. So that kind of stuck with me. That was pretty close, but I wanted to go the next level and actually own the thing and really have it. Even if that meant I had to start a lot smaller and grind it out way harder and go without things for the first couple years of my career. There's one kind of also just really fun nugget. I'm from this German family. I'm Canadian. We've been in Canada since my grandparents, since the 50s. But a long time ago, we were German, and we're part of this really extended family. In Europe, they track their family trees a lot more intensely. So I'm descendant from this cement tycoon. And the fun fact is that the Statue of Liberty's base is on my family's cement. Now, we're 6 generations away, 6-7 generations. We didn't inherit any money really from it, but it's almost like a history club. There's all of these 300, 400 people that are descendants from this person in Germany. And some of them still have some inherited wealth, some of it, but after 6 or 7 generations, who knows? Anyway, as a young child, I would go to these, and it was really powerful for me. I said, okay, well, this person figured out how to build a big, successful company, and we're having big celebrations 240 years later or whatever it is. And
Totally.
The nieces and nephews are bickering over their allowance, because this one guy just killed it so heavily such a long time ago. So, as a 8-year-old, that was extremely profound for me. And it was also really interesting. It gave me a chip on my shoulder because I had these cousins who were extremely wealthy, and we were just kind of not, just because my great grandparents like made a bad decision. So it was just a really interesting kind of like it gave me a glimpse of what the impact can be if you do it well. And between that and my dad's experience, like I just always really wanted to be a business owner and a founder. So I got into it, I guess, as soon as I could possibly make it happen. Like I'd founded a company in my dorm
Nice.
room. I was running little businesses in high school. I was selling like snacks and chips and like mowing lawns and stuff like that. Like just always doing something like that.
Nice. That's great. I love that. Um, yeah, it sounds similar to, I guess growing up. It wasn't much entrepreneur. My dad started his own practice. He bought a building and was a doctor and had his own practice for like 40 years. I mean, essentially he was in residency at a hospital. And the chief surgeon came in one day. I mean, this was like 50 years ago, but he's like, chief surgeon came in and was like, all right, here's the medicine we're going to start telling everybody they need to take today or whatever. And he was like, no. So he left and he went and he bought a building. He like
Okay.
started, and I think I've always had some of that in me in terms of, wanting to break free from whatever the norm is they say it is. But I love that. I love that you also recognize that it was not only like it had been in your past and your lineage, but it had also been not, and sort of seeing and recognizing both of those and sort of having a young, decision of like, I think I choose to go down the path that is, sort of led to the base of the Statue of Liberty.
Pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. It was really, I
That's
was like,
that's
why the
amazing.
heck haven't we done this in 200 years? I was kind of like flabbergasted. I was like, what's up with you guys? Like, just go do it finally again.
Yeah,
I went and decided to
that's
go do it. And
amazing.
that's kind of how it started.
So you went to school.
Yep.
Where'd you go to school?
We were homeschooled for a little bit, and then I went to high school in Canada, and then I went to McGill in Montreal, so in French Canada and Quebec. And I decided that I hate the winter, and I moved down to San Francisco right after. And yeah, I don't really like school very much. I was happy to get out.
Me too. I
Uh,
couldn't like I was the one that was always futzing with the TI-85, like, like the calculator and like trying to get it to do stuff. There was one kid in my class that had like Mario running on his
I was gonna
TI-85.
say that I remember you could do that. You could install games and like
But
create.
totally, but like, please recite this back to me. I was just like, no, I want to go build something. That's cool. Where did like, so you realized like you were selling snacks, you had startups like in your sort of dorm room. Like once you moved to San Francisco, what did you start in on right out of the gate?
Was it was kind of disjointed. So I got into this business program at Stanford Business School, which sounds all elite. It wasn't a degree though. It was like a summer institute sort of entrepreneurship thing. But you live there, and I'd never, man. I'm from a blue collar family. Like I had been a busboy for 5 years. I didn't know any of this stuff existed. I'd never been to the West Coast. I was very excited and proud to have gotten into the program. And I asked my mom, like, "Hey, mom, I need a visa for this thing." And she told me that I was a citizen. I didn't know this, but I'd been a U.S. citizen the entire time, even though I'd been in Canada. So all of a sudden, I was like, all right, okay. Like day two in California, I was like, this is pretty damn awesome. I'm gonna probably just stay here for the rest of my life. I hated the winter.
Boy,
I
that's a
didn't
lot of
like,
paperwork and a lot of years that I didn't have to like.
yeah, like I was just like, this is better. I'm gonna stay. And it answered my question around like being a business owner. There's like a whole culture here about being a founder and being an entrepreneur and starting businesses. There's like materials. You're not so lonely. You get some friends here. There's like a whole thing around it. So it kind of answered a lot of my questions. I was very seriously thinking that I was just going to be a busboy at a restaurant until I could save up and buy a little cafe. And then I might have two cafes. And like that was kind of my life vision at the time because it was all I
Nice.
knew. I was like 20 years old. So yeah, I did this thing at Stanford and that changed everything. And I had to do one more semester in Montreal and then I just moved down and stayed. And I had a startup in my dorm. So basically I went back to McGill all full of this idea, like this whole idea of Silicon Valley and just immediately made stuff happen.
Everyone back there's like, oh no, he's drunk on Silicon Valley.
Yeah, that was a cliche.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool. So then you came back and did you work at a startup or did you start like you already had something running and you just took it further?
No, we were kind of too naive to even know how clueless we were, which was kind of useful. So we started this completely silly thing in our dorm rooms. We wanted to build an ad exchange for China. We thought we could take ads into mainland China. This is the craziest idea. I can't even believe we thought this would work, but
I
there's
got
an
to know where
Excel.
that started though. Was it like sitting around the couch, like watching, watching
No,
TV, and someone's like, "I got an idea.
I had
We got
two
to sell ads in
engineers.
China."
I had two engineers. One was Korean and one was Chinese. And the Chinese guy, this is also just so naive. Like he was from Hong Kong, which back then was very separate, but he was like, yeah, we should launch in Beijing. I was like, awesome. And then I did all my little pretentious business school thing, and I like built a business plan and researched it. And all I was doing was trying to keep reassuring myself that it was brilliant. And so we raised money from this little accelerator program that still exists. It's for helping Western founders launch in the East. And
It's amazing.
it was a disaster. We lost all our money, and we're there for 4 or 5 months, ran out of everything. But the company did well. So we pivoted, moved to Palo Alto. We got into Boost VC, which is still doing great. We were cohort 2. This is in like 2014, 2013. And we were bought. We made money. We had a profitable exit, doing everything wrong and being completely clueless and incorrect about the market. But when we pivoted back to work to do it in the US, our product worked better, and we knew a little bit more about the industry and the landscape. And so we were able to make it work from there. Pretty crazy start, like not a linear start at all.
But I like that. I mean, that is the process. I feel like there's this whole sort of like, there's a playbook and you just have to follow the playbook, and it's pretty straightforward, and really it's not like whatever works for one company doesn't work for the other, and really you need to learn those, a lot of experimentation, and then learning when to sort of pivot, and when to listen, and when to sort of back up, when to go fast. And but I love that it was a non-linear path, but you found y'all's path, especially to an exit, which is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, look, I guess if you're born in Palo Alto and you like get into the Stanfords of the world, like it's pretty linear. Okay, drop out, go get into Y Combinator. Like there is a linear
There are
path.
shortcuts. There
But if
are shortcuts.
like I meet all these people from the other side of the planet, don't even speak English. Like there's no such thing as a linear path. Like they have to figure out how to get their green card, and they have to learn the language, and they have to do all these like side
Right.
quests. The side quests can take 5 years, and then they finally like it's a whole like having a linear path to entrepreneurship is a privilege. It's like some stars align that are you should be grateful for if it was linear.
Right.
For a lot of us, it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Amazing. So, okay, well then, so your first one out of the gate, you had an exit, and then what was day one like post exit? Were you like, all right, what what happens now?
I have a whole rant on that. It was obviously a wonderful thing. It wasn't a life-changing thing, but we were 24. I mean, we were really young. And we made a couple $100,000. Like at the time, it seemed like infinite everything. And I mean, we had lived on. Okay, so here's some numbers. There were 4 of us. We raised $185,000 total, and we lived for 3 years on that. So you can do the math. Like we were not baller. We were like going to networking events just for the snacks. Like we were basically.
Yeah. Who's got quarter beer on draft at 4
Yeah,
o'clock on like
like I had a Prius that my uncle let me use. I could barely put gas in it. It was meager. Now we had
nice.
a great time. We didn't give a shit. We had just been in college where you're broke anyways, and
Yep.
whatever funding we raised just went to pay for rent. So we rent a house, and we all worked out of the house. It was kind of like the Facebook movie, but without the progress montage. And we were actually 2 blocks from that house. We were in that neighborhood,
Oh wow.
for 6 months, and then we moved somewhere else. We were in bunk beds for a while. Like it was pretty meager. So anyway, so when the day it happened was extraordinarily joyful. We were very happy and accomplished. But the really weird thing was the very counterintuitive thing was something internal was gone. I don't know. Like it got pretty bleak pretty quickly to live inside my head, and even my founders too. Like we all kind of like felt that it was odd. Um,
Was
it's hard
it
to
that
describe, but
like the ambi was it like the ambition now obviously and the drive to build something and to like was it the the thing that you had built sort of gone away and now you were driftless, or was it like
yeah,
what was the sort of like what was the push and pull there?
that's pretty much yeah. That's the best way to describe it. I think I'd been so used to being at war all the time. Like
Hmm.
I had these three other people who I had convinced to change their whole trajectory, and like it didn't seem like it was gonna be okay. And like I had raised money from people. I was like a young kid. Like I really took it very seriously to have other people's investment, even though it was all so small. To them, it might not have been that small. And like I was in this kind of semi traumatized coping state because it looked like we were going to fail. So we were like really scraping, but I couldn't give up because I had told everyone it would work. And like, and so when it all finally clicked and we did the deal, obviously a huge relief. But then very quickly, the jarring, like the North Star was gone, and the North Star was so clear, as jarring and brutal as the existence had been with that North Star. When the North Star was gone, it was like, oh, well, I had never had anything like that in my life, and I had some dough. It wasn't anything crazy, but at the time, I had never had more than like $100 in my checking account, and so I had a couple, some cash to spend, and it was just very very jarring. Like it was very jarring. I was actually quite depressed. There were months where I would like go to bed early just to be sleeping because I just wanted the time to pass. Like I didn't have like it was bizarre. And obviously no one's gonna listen to your sob story because they all think that you're this like success story now. So it's pretty lonely too. Like all my friends came asking for
Totally.
loans. I didn't really have enough to really make meaningful to do anything for any of them, but like I don't know. It was just a very weird, disorienting time.
I bet.
Very
I
weird.
you know, I imagine, and I've had ups and like I've had periods like that in our startup, but also in other periods when I've been in other, but like, I've been in big consulting firms and agencies and stuff like that. And I'm just sort of doing the things you're supposed to do in that position. And there's this whole other side of my brain that wants to like activate and go do stuff. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, same thing. It's like, I just want to nap and watch Netflix and I just want
Yeah.
to like curl up. But you're trying to figure out, and that something is missing, that there's some major part, and to basically run a sprint and just like see what you're made of and to run so hard and then basically to stop, wake up and go, I guess I should get some breakfast. Like it's, you know, and all of that stuff is gone, is also hard because then you inside your brain you're going, well, who am I? What do I want? What do I do? What do I like? What am I for? What am I purpose? And I think your brain goes, I'm having a hard time with this.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, it was a struggle, and it was not a like fun time either. Like I was pretty depressed, and I've heard others talk about that. It's so counterintuitive, and no one has any tears to shed for you because you just had like the one thing that everyone strives for. But like it can
Yeah.
be pretty disorienting and pretty unpleasant when you lose the North Star and the war is over. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. Well, what was the path? When did you start like emerging from that, and what was the spark that sort of went into the next thing?
I mean, from there, I started working. I mean, the engineer stayed with the company. I stayed for a short period of time that bought us, but I moved into a incubation of a much bigger and sort of more accomplished group of founders. So I was like the first non-founding engineer, basically, or sorry, non-engineer sort of founding team. And that was the beginnings of where I started learning go to market and like proper B2B selling. And like that's where my whole career kind of took shape. So yeah, when that sort of deal closed after a couple months, I moved into this company. It was called Skyport Systems. It was done by the Sutter Hill team. So they're absolutely incredible. And they, very early in NVIDIA, they incubated Snowflake. They're just known for taking really big, long term, well capitalized bets and building really great teams. Like they have a program, it's almost like the NFL's like scout program. Like they'll find PhDs as they're in their formative years and they'll like court them to found companies. And it's like this
Oh
whole
wow.
and so I was really honored and privileged to be a part of that as a young kid. Um, And they were a cybersecurity company. They sold into banks and institutions. They were, really well developed, had plenty of capital. And they brought the CRO over. It was one of the best CROs in the world. His name is Rick Hansen. He's in Boston. He's killing it. He's at a huge company right now. But his quota before we got him was $4.2 billion a year. So he had been the worldwide head of HP's software arm. So if he didn't put 4.2 billion cash in the bank every year, he was fired. So he's one of those guys, like he's seeing every scale you could
Wow.
possibly imagine for B2B selling and managed entire regions and teams and thousands of people. So I was his right hand. So we set up all the territories. We hired a huge team. We got them up to about 10 million in annual revenue. And they were ultimately bought by Cisco. And that's where I learned everything. So Rick is still kind of his voice is echoing in my brain like every day. Because all I really did since that from that point onwards was set up sales teams and set up sales systems and kind of do trainings and do like building a whole practice around getting from 0 to 5 and 0 to 10. So that was kind of the trajectory from that exit. There was one other kind of attempt that also failed miserably. So I did do one other attempted startup that didn't really work. But I'll leave that as a blip. Really, I went to Skyport Systems, learned everything that I needed to know. I guess you could say trying that other company is where I like really realized I need to stick to what I know. And what I knew.
No, wait, I gotta know, like how far off the path were you like, oh, I think I'm gonna get into making cheese, or like what was
Oh man,
like?
I wish that would have been a useful thing for society. No, I was hanging out I got introduced to it. I was just very infatuated with the world of high finance. And I was introduced to some PhDs who were doing like a quantitative trading thing. And it was incredible. Like they had great numbers. They were trading with real capital. It was all like large cap public stocks. So it was kind of like Moneyball for index funds, I guess you could say. It was using AI way before AI was so common. And I just really loved it. And I felt invincible. I felt on top of the world and had some cash sitting around, which I immediately made completely disappear on regulatory and compliance and legal and like all this nonsense.
Gosh.
Thinking I could launch a quantitative hedge fund as like a 25, 26-year-old kind of hotshot with not a lot of network in the like billionaire community. It doesn't always come down to how good your quant stuff is. It's like, can you raise capital quickly from people who have a lot of money? And I didn't really have that. So long story short, wasted a ton of dough, got very humbled, and then started doing fractional sales advisory, building off of what I had learned at Skyport. And that has become Darwinian. We've done a lot with that sort of learning. So that, that little blip was just a very annoying detour, but it was very humbling and I learned a lot.
I'm sure you have lots of learnings from that one.
Yeah. I know how to spend money on very fancy lawyers and
oh my gosh.
firms. Yeah.
The only thing I can relate to that is during the sort of 2018 to 2020, staying up late and watching Bitcoin on Kraken and just not making good decisions.
Yeah, it's basically casino style.
Right. Yeah. So really from that mentor on the revenue side and building startup teams, that's where you sort of really got your sort of PhD and like, okay, here's what I'm going to go do. That sort of led into Darwinian.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
How long were you there?
At Skyport?
Yeah.
I think it was 3 years. They were bought in 2016. Yeah.
And then did you have an idea of leaving and sort of starting to build while you were there, or was it sort of after you left?
Well, yeah. But the quantitative thing. So for the last couple months, I was like setting it up and getting to know these PhDs and spending stupid amounts on lawyers and KPMG and all that. And then I left to go and do that. And I tried it for a good year. And we got some headway, or like I learned a lot. I still have friends from it, but it just wasn't going to work. We weren't going to do the fund launch. And the way these things work, if you can't raise $25 million just to get a little bit of the fees, because you make your money, you actually pay your salary out of the management fees and whatnot. So if you can't raise 25 million, you're in trouble.
Right.
And we couldn't do it. So I had to, like, I was quite literally struggling to pay rent and I was in debt. And I started doing fractional consulting work. And that was how that whole thing started. So I realized, okay, I actually know B2B enterprise sales team setup and management like really well. And most of my friends who are founders don't. They don't teach it at school, and it's ultra pivotal to making any founder successful. And so that was kind of the beginnings. But I just started as a freelancer making, a couple grand a month on a 1099 to crawl my way out of debt.
I love that. I mean, it's really that freelancing, sort of doing it on your own, and is such a good beginning part, or can be, of so many different things like this, is to be able to, I always found that even when I was at jobs or in between jobs, like just being able to sort of do those things and test those things on the side to see what they could be with some extra cash, but also, in your case, like you just kept going, which is great. When did it start to get to the point when you started to bring on more people, like in terms of a team, and when you started to, like, when you switched from that like freelancer mode to like, oh, this is going to be a thing?
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So for maybe a year, I was just solo. And what I started to mess with was, okay, I would say, all right, if I'm a contractor and I'm fractional, maybe I can take two at once and still make it work. And you get kind of good at how to do that without bothering anyone or without anyone feeling shortchanged. So,
Hmm.
in fact, I think that was kind of the biggest thing in the first maybe 2 years was that I would slowly learn how to take more work and like be defensive of like not defensive, but structure my time in a way where I could still add a lot of value to multiple folks. And then I started hiring a couple of people here and there to do specific things. And then I realized, I'm decent at hiring. Like I've hired some great folks, and if you do it right, you can slowly kind of fire yourself from certain roles and take another one. And that first the first couple times we tried it, we didn't succeed, so we had a bunch of hiccups here and there. But then we finally, we got it down to a system, and I think there was a point when we had 5 people, and I went to hire the sixth, and I really wanted to work with him, but he wanted health insurance, and so I just went and put everyone on W-2, and that was kind of when it all like clicked into being a real
Oh,
business.
now we got a company.
Yeah, got them all on Gusto. That was the big thing. It wasn't just a bunch of wires flying around.
Yeah.
I'm on direct deposit, W-2, healthcare, dental, vision, like all that stuff. And it was actually great for everything on the business side too, because I'd learned that gig workers are tougher to build a real business around. So like it was better to have really long-term focused folks where like the world, like their lives were sort of taken care of and they could plan for the future and have kids and all that stuff. And I just think as subtle as it is, moving everyone to W-2 and putting them on payroll, like actually was a really good thing for that. Otherwise, we were working with other people that were trying to stretch things out and trying to work from the beach in Bali and stuff like that. So,
Right.
so that was kind
What
of
was when you went from 5 to 6, which was your sort of inflection point to becoming a
yeah.
company? Was everyone in the same, like, did you have an office? Everyone was working together every day, or was it sort of all remote?
No, it was all remote, and now sales has been remote since way before COVID. Like you
Mhm.
usually have like a Northeast team and a Southeast team and there's the team in Seattle and in LA and all these places. So even long before COVID, I'd just been used to running a team all over the country. Um, and so that was pretty natural to us. We've always been really good at maintaining culture remotely, and making sure people feel bought in and sort of, get to know each other. And there's like, you can't quite, I'd always prefer to be in person, but if you're careful about it, you can do a good job remotely as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So did from 6 to, what was the next sort of culture shift or dynamic shift? You hear that, like, it's like what, 5 and 20 and 100, and
Yeah.
like, what was your next sort of like, or was it like, the size of clients or the number of clients? Like, what was the next sort of, moment when you went, okay, we just entered a new chapter?
I mean, it was pretty linear from there. We'd have some fits and starts, but for the most part, it was pretty linear. I mean, I think at our max, we were maybe 25.
Hmm.
Um, we did an incubation at one point where we had a startup that was sort of venture backed and that had maybe 15 at one point. So, at one point we were kind of getting close to 40. And that was right in the boom time, which was so COVID almost killed us. And then like 21, 22 were kind of our best years ever because there's a lot of like a lot of investment in the economy and people had
Yeah.
finally, realized they still have to execute and do things. So that was kind of the peak. And, then I started realizing it's not the most scalable business. It's got a really, really niche kind of value prop. Like it's really just startups. It's really just B2B. I'd say for the last 2 years, there's been a giant die off of traditional SaaS, and there's this new kind of crop of AI businesses which don't quite have the business model is still kind of being figured out. So we've actually shrunk substantially. We're at around like 10 folks right now, but we're getting better and better. I mean, the cool thing is you don't have to like. I'd almost rather be this elite small team of Navy SEALs than giant, standing army. um,
Totally. And
and then
even
the other,
now, this February 5th was the watershed day, right? Which was like Opus 4.6 and Claude Code and these sort of things. And we've even felt it in our team. There's three.
yeah,
And you feel there's like pre-February where you still feel like you're three, and then there's post February, which feels like there's two of us doing the work of six, which is just like it's amazing.
it's wild. Yeah, it's really cool. I mean,
So
the
what
thing,
like
yeah, good.
give a description for everyone that's listening and watching. Like, it's interesting that your model for working like services and working with teams, but you also do venture. It was sales and service and standing up sales teams first, and then you also kind of moved into venture as well, right?
Yeah, well, the reality of to that is just like, well, like you want to talk about painful realizations. Um, we've done well over 100 clients at this point where we've been in the garage with them, and we're really, really hands on. Like we're staffed, we're embedded. They're all in the U.S. Like we're not like we're really in there. It's not really an agency where you just throw things over. Like we're in there staffing. People hire our people all the time. Like our clients will just hire our team. So what that means is we're really tight with the CEOs usually, and we're really early. Now, fast forward to 2023, 24, like, we had 3 unicorns and we were in the garage with the CEO and we didn't get a single share. So,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously grateful to have worked with them, love those guys, all wonderful, da da da. But like, what the hell? Like, if only
Yeah.
we had like either had a couple bucks or asked for equity compensation. Now, I did try, and it doesn't always really fly because we don't have high margins. So like, I can't discount much. So it's sometimes I'll get a little bit of advisory equity. But I remember at the very beginning, I didn't even really try. I didn't bother. I was just like, hey, we'll get a little bit of margin, get good at our jobs. That's fine. Such a silly. Like I wish I had had a little more thoughtfulness and long term vision. So anyway, so 3 years ago, we we just started writing small checks, and they're not. We don't have a fund. It's just from our profit. So I'll write little 10K. Although I think the biggest we've ever done is 100K, but like to us that's massive. So most of them are down in the 10 to 25K range. Um, but it's incredible. We have like really, really intense information, and I mean, they're private companies. We have insider information, like say whatever you want, but like they're private. Like we know exactly what's going on in there. And yeah, like hell yeah.
Well, you know how resilient the founding team is.
Yeah.
You know how fast it's sort of they're adopting what you're building from a sales perspective in there. And so, yeah, being able to sort of see how the sausage is made, I'm sure is like, okay, now, I'll put X amount in.
Oh yeah. Like we'll see product market fit sometimes before the founders do, because we're out there researching and cold calling them. Like a lot of the founders, when we find them, they're so early that most of their interactions are with their friendly group. And we'll be the first ones to go to the very hardcore strangers that don't care about them at all, and get the cold shower of rejection. So, so we would get really, really good information. And so we started investing, and that's been doing really well. So we're not really professional VCs, but I would like to raise a fund, and our track record is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And I could even say that our phantom track record of all those missed opportunities is even better. But I
Yeah.
think we're onto something, and it's a pretty unique thing in the VC world to be able to really change the sales team's trajectory and then get in when the trajectory is really strong.
It's a little philosophical, but could you see yourself down the road sort of, trading and handing off the service sales side and sort of, going down the VC route as a fund
Yeah,
off the side of this? Yeah.
you could. I think about that a fair bit. I mean, on the one hand, like the VC business is just much more scalable and lucrative. Like the services business is tough. So yeah, on the one hand, yeah, I could see that making sense. On the other hand, it's kind of our whole unique edge. There's a million little VCs out there, and they're all identical. I've raised from them. It's silly. Like very few of them have a lot of really applied expertise or knowledge or instincts. And they're kind of just retailing money from the same group of LPs, and that's it. So I tend to really be proud of our edge. I think we have way more like we have calluses on our hands, and it's very real time. We know exactly the tools that suck today and that are good today, and we know the markets that are doing great and all that. Um, like we get really good intel and like instincts around which founders have the right attributes. Now you could argue a lot of that you could still maintain even if you weren't in the business anymore. I don't know. It's kind of a bit of a TBD.
It's
It's an
interesting because
interesting
I
one.
could see that. I know, and I've seen those. You see those teams not as often, but you do see the teams that, not accelerator teams, but VC teams that really are smaller and get embedded like you do with the sales teams, and sort of, and really sort of see that like, no, 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 stop that. Don't do that. Like, I'm
Cut it
telling you,
out.
like this, and let me
Yeah.
give you the tools, and let me set this up, and then see if that works. Like, and those embedded teams, how well that can work, when the sort of investment team wraps their, both expertise and services and network around a company.
Yeah.
Um, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
What do you see in the horizon for the next, with how things are changing, and AI and agentic and data, and like, what do you see for your teams in the evolution of selling and building teams?
Yeah, it's a good question. It makes it really hard to think about what on earth like I've been a product founder before. I often thought I would go back and just be a founder CEO again, and that this whole services business was just a way to keep the weapons sharp and like get ideas. But I don't know what the hell I would found right now. Like it's so hard. You can prototype anything in a week, and it's really wild. So I'm just kind of keeping a really close eye on where the leverage is going to go. So like if engineers are losing leverage, like does that just straight up mean that sales and marketing gain it, or is that also now so easy to do? Like
Maybe, or you get hybrid teams that, you get somebody who was a coder but also happen to be in sales. Like you
right,
get
right,
these sort
right,
of
yeah,
strike teams where it sort of is like, um, you know, you, you get somebody who was fantastic at designing and did great in Figma and Webflow and Framer, but then all of a sudden dove in and understood the front end mechanism so well. Like you just start like, fusing some of these things. And I think it really comes down to, it feels like the roles are blending so much that really you just get the people who want to sort of learn and absorb and try, and pivot, so much, the sort of like experimental teams who are willing to sort of go experiment versus the sort of rigid, I am a this and I needed this to help me do that, kind of thing. So,
makes sense. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah,
the very interesting sort of moment that we're in when all of these different writing, prototyping, service design, sales, customer service. Like you think about all of them and how all of them start to like take on different shapes than, it used to be pretty straightforward in the slots that you needed to be able to sort of service, a business.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um,
Yeah, so I guess like I don't know what I would found. I like the world that I'm in. Like I do think we're building a lot of value and we're building a great portfolio of equities and keeping our weapons sharp. But it's yeah, I don't know what the long term vision is. I think I think I could see a really interesting world where, like, I've always admired Sutter Hill. So Sutter Hill is incredibly good at long-term, thoughtful incubation of companies. There's a couple other ones too. There's Endurance, there's 8VC, there's a few other VC shops that have like real operator first sort of build programs where they're actually like really kind of structuring and building and founding a business. I would really enjoy that. I think that would be really fun. And I think we have a really interesting play there too, because having done go to market 100 plus times, every market you can, like every industry, every vertical, like we've done so much. If we had good capital backing, I could see us doing a really unique and differentiated version of that, where we're almost, you could build a company, but from the demand first. So you could kind of first see if the demand was real using our go to market prowess,
Right.
even in advance of having much, and then quickly prototype and build and launch something like that. I don't know. There's that's been something that I've been playing with as a
Yeah.
concept.
It's interesting that to think about with the skills and expertise and now how far you can go in terms of
Yeah,
building, agents that can also do this, but baking in everything that you sort of learn from a context perspective and knowledge, historically for the team, and then being able to go do that and almost way quicker get signal back than any other time that you could have done it. But then when you get the signal back, it's y'all's team, I imagine, that from expertise perspective would be able to then say, okay, here's what I think we should do based on what we found.
yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
It's an interesting time. It's kind of a TBD, but
Yeah, amazing. Well, what's one thing that you've like? Do you have a either a tool or a service or something that you've come across or you've been using these days that that you really like or that you recommend in when you're standing up teams and consulting?
yeah, it changes so quickly. Yeah, there's a bunch of great tools out there. We're finding a really interesting disruption of like the lead data world. So like the Zoom Infos and the Apollos are kind of like Apollo came up and started eating Zoom Info's lunch, but now they're all getting just kind of clawed down by a ton of cheaper upstarts. So
Hmm.
there's some interesting new ones out there. Cred is an example that we work closely with. There's a couple of others. We're seeing like this concept. There's one concept that I really like that we've been using for a lot of our setups. It's this concept of listening. So like social listening. So instead of like building static lists, researching and trying to figure out who you want to go after just in a static way, you kind of have an ongoing trigger. So it's like listening. So it's actually looking for that data point being revealed in real time. And then you can maybe chase after somebody. So the most basic example is if someone comes to your website, maybe you can reach out to them. Like there's little things like that. But I think more way even higher order above that, the transcripts thing. So the transcripts of all of your calls
Hmm.
are just this, people have sort of known to collect them now for a while. It's like pretty normal to have a note taker on a call now. But nobody,
Yeah.
like, be realistic, nobody ever touches them ever again until only just recently I've started messing with this, and it's insanely powerful. If you put all your transcripts together into an LLM, you can answer any question imaginable, and it's really powerful, and it's backed up by real words that people said, and like it's easy
Yeah.
to make it referenceable and citable. Um,
Well, for customer insights, for also for sales calls, and then being able to pull out what was good and what was not, and then, for
or for
customer
training,
calls,
yeah,
being able to pull out signals. Granola is great at being able to. You could chat with all your calls this week. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
what were the biggest signals that came out this week, or what are the priorities that I need to think about? But I think underlying what you're saying is I've really noticed this, and I wrote an article a couple of weeks ago about this, about like I think markdown files are the new oil,
yeah,
right? Is that you get this like there is this very compact interesting insight sort of portable thing. And if you don't know what to do with it and you're just like, I'll just put it in that folder. But if you do know what to do with it, you can take a bunch of these things and put them together and then put it into a model and work on it. And what you get out is just like amazing.
it's incredible. Yeah, like I know a
Yeah.
company where they took, it's like 750 calls. It's like all their customer calls to date, and it's queryable. They found a way to do it. Like normally that would break most LLMs if you were to upload that many PDFs or what have you, but they found a way to do it, and they can pull 700 plus calls. And so it's incredible. You can ask anything. You can say, hey, what are the top 5 pushback, like what features are the most well received, which ones are the ones that get pushback, or like pricing, like, hey, like, tell me about, like, you can ask anything. You can even ask which of my reps like needs work, or like, give me some
Yeah.
working notes for like such and such, and it's incredible, and it cites it, and it's really cool. So I haven't found a tool. I'll check out Granola, but I don't think it's actually, like, I think it's a really interesting problem, because in my view, all you actually need is the written transcript. All the different tools have different summaries, but I don't really care about that. I really just want the raw transcript. The challenge for me is, how do you get hundreds and hundreds of them into one context window? And this company found a way to do it. It was very duct tapey, though. They had to wrangle a bunch of stuff together and put it into chunks, and like put it in an index file. And I'm not technical, but they used those big words, and they did it. It worked. I wasn't able to do it without real engineering work. Uh,
There is a way, and I'll show you. I actually did it for I
okay.
did a bunch of research recently,
Yeah.
where I basically ran 5 different prompts across Grok and ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and Gemini, and then each prompt came back with like 50 pages of information. And so I took all of those plus the summary of, so I've got about like 80, sort of like outputs, put them into Claude Code and essentially build a prompt for Claude Code that says you're an expert research synthesis, and
Okay.
so the difference with Claude Code, if you do it like on web or desktop or things like that, you're going to run into these things where it's like, please don't upload more than 8 files. But with Claude Code, you can basically say, here's a directory tree with all these things in it.
Oh, nice.
I want
Okay.
you to
Yeah.
go through, and here's how I want you to approach it. And then I want you to come out with the final, and it gave me like a 40-page document that breaks down like competitor analysis and all these sort of things. So you can almost build your own little research agent with Claude Code, but it doesn't actually have to be code. Like, you don't have to code anything.
Okay.
You just have to sort of do it in this in terminal, which most people don't sort of live in on their computer. But once you get used to it, you can really just talk to it like Claude, but it has so much more opportunity to be like, sure, I'll look over your 80 files. Like, give me a minute.
Yeah. I
Um,
want that. Like, that sounds
yeah,
great.
totally. We'll have to do a session. I'll show you. Once you start unlocking that, the other thing I did was I hate building presentations coming from the, Deloitte, Accenture worlds, and things like that, and building presentations. I have it now where basically my Claude desktop, I tell it what I want, and it gives me a markdown file, and I put it into my presentation agent, and it goes,
Yeah.
hold on a second. 92 seconds, it spins up a presentation in Gamma and says, here's your presentation. And and you're like, amazing, thanks. And then you just like email it off to someone. So
That's incredible. Oh,
yeah,
that's really
the
cool.
tools they're getting so fun. Um, Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Like, I what I would one thing I would love to know, like, going back to yourself, either, and you can pick either point, like before coming to San Francisco or when you were in the Valley of Sorrow post exit, like for either one of those sort of versions of yourself, if there's anyone listening that are in one of those sort of moments, like what would you say now, like looking back, as an approach to either sort of like to take getting into things wide-eyed or to sort of like find your way out of something?
Yeah. You mean, I guess, like, back when I was like a small town kid in Canada, or
Yeah.
when I was kind of an unjustifiably, like, I like thought I was top of the world, but it turned out to be hollow.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, if you could just, you had 5 minutes and you could just beam back for a second, be like, look, let me just tell you this really quick. Like,
Yeah.
what is some of that advice that you would give one of those versions of yourself?
You know what? I mean, everyone says life is short. I think life is actually pretty long. And when you're young, you always feel like you're almost at the end of it, which is really weird.
Mm.
So, like, I remember when maybe this is just me, I don't know, but I always thought, like, and Silicon Valley doesn't help with this, by the way, but it's like, you got to be really accomplished by the time you're in your late 20s,
Oh, yeah.
and if you don't,
Yep.
you're cooked. Yeah. There's like a lot of that. There's this really huge pressure to be like the young wonderkind. Um, And I wish I had known earlier that it just keeps going. Like, there's going to be ups and downs. You're going to go through some really terrible stuff and you're going to go through some really great stuff. The sun just keeps coming up the next day, and like, might as well think long term and don't think that it's a really big deal if, you hit, whatever it is, your late 20s and you're not Mark Zuckerberg or what have you. Like I see that with a lot of the young entrepreneurs that I speak to. And, um, a lot of them think that they're like nobodies because they haven't had this huge exit by the time they're 25 or whatever it is. Just the sun just keeps coming up. Like, you're going to be around for a while. Like, just get comfortable, think long term, make long term bets. Don't think that any of these wins or losses are really that defining. And just keep chopping wood and try to be positive about all of it. I mean, the other big thing is just don't like I always thought that the biggest thing to look out for is more about idleness and complacency. So even in the good times and the bad, just keep active, keep doing things, have some humility. I think that's really key. I think that would be what I would say to myself in either of those
Nice.
scenarios. Like,
That's great.
yeah,
No, that's great. And you're right. It does apply. It does apply to both. I think, I think we go through periods where we think I'm supposed to be at X place by now, and I'm not. And that sort of discontent can just last forever because the bar never, you never actually just sort of catch up to it, wherever you are. So that's good. I love that. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your history and the Darwinian journey. And I love that where you're at right now and the successes that you had came from. Boy, I better start freelancing. I love that.
yeah, that was a
Uh,
roller coaster, man. It's like, yeah, that was crazy. Had to start freelancing because the rent was due, and I had law firms banging on my door for like 50, 80, 100 grand. And I was like, shit,
yeah.
got to figure it
And now
out.
you got a Salesforce tower right behind you.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's good. Well, amazing. And
Okay,
I appreciate you coming on.
cool. Yeah, great. Thank you.